welcome to Student Spotlights. This is a series of interviews with students to mark the end of the year and to coincide with the digital showcase. I'm delighted to be joined by Matty, Hannah and Terry, who have all just recently finished their foundation year. Welcome, guys.
Hi.
Be great to start with just if you're able to kind of introduce yourself a bit, talk about the pathway that you're on, and just to introduce your final major project. So, Matty, I'd just like to start with you. There we are.
Right, super. Hello. My name's Matty. I've been living in Manchester for about 10 years now. And like I come from the northeast, and I am more of a mature student. Like I'm 27 years old, and I'm fully aware that I'm on a course full of people who just graduated from college, but that just did not faze me one bit, and I just still had probably the best year in education I've probably ever had in my whole life, sort of thing. I chose the graphics and illustration pathway, and for my final project I chose to do it on the theme of hiking. So I made myself about a 30-page guidebook of black inked illustrations, and I also chose for the first time using how to do digital art. So I pretty much just self-taught myself the Adobe InDesign to create this guidebook, as well as practicing my illustrative skills.
Mm-hmm. I'll just skip through to the next page.
Yeah, so once again, this is another exercise of my Adobe skills. Bearing in mind, I've only just this is my first year as a professional sort of artist, I suppose, or trying to be at least. I've never done any Adobe experience. I've never had any Adobe experience prior to this year, and this is pretty much my first attempt since for the FMP. So throughout the year, I was pretty well known as the guy who did a lot of silkscreen printing or lino printing, risograph as well. And yeah, I mean, I just loved the dexterity sort of process of just using your hands and creating something class from it. Mm-hmm. So it was such a big change in direction from a final project to do something solely based on my laptop. So I thought I'd just try and get as many skills in as possible, through my illustrative background, I suppose. And yeah, just created this on Adobe Illustrator.
And what's your... I get from this that you must enjoy being in the outdoors, and
yeah, it's it was never my intention to do it a relating all my work to the outdoors, but it just sort of felt natural for me. So my background was in 2011 to 2014. I did my bachelor's degree in geography, in human geography. So I don't know. So human geography doesn't particularly have anything to do with hiking or the outdoors. It's more about urban populations and research into anthropology sort of things. But yeah, but I've always had a passion for going on walks or just doing any outdoor activities. Mm-hmm. And particularly in the last one, I like it's pretty nerdy, but I like collecting maps and reading them and trying to figure out new walks and that. So yeah, and this is just so this image here, I created this on Illustrator, and basically it was just a photograph of my last walk that I did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I'll just this is another image of your work, but we'll just lead on to my question about on Foundation. It's a kind of perfect year to test out and try new processes and new workshops. So how have you found that? Have you been able to experiment with lots of different techniques and processes?
I mean, 100%, Zoe. Like the reason why I chose Foundation was because I literally have no knowledge in illustrative practices at all prior to this, and I did not realize how broad like illustration and graphics design could be until my tutors and all of like my peers on the course were just like practicing with new things. So I did not know, like for example, this piece here, it's a lino cut. I didn't know that lino was a thing, never even heard of the term or seen any lino works at all. And so I just used this foundation year as an opportunity to completely dive into every single workshop available. And to the like, well, to the joy of like my tutors, like that's exactly what I want to see from you. Just diverse in your work. It's not the finest piece that I've created, but I had fun enjoying it, learning the process, and yeah, and to be fair, the outcome's not too bad. So like, I'm kind of happy with how everything's like, how all the workshops has worked out for me in the end. I really learned so much about the process of art, I suppose, in creating pieces.
Amazing. Thanks, Matty. I'm sure we'll kind of talk about that a little bit more in a bit, but thank you for sharing those. Hannah, would you just mind telling us what pathway you're on and also a little bit about your project?
Yeah, I'm on the 3D design pathway. I don't know where to start with my project. It's really weird and wacky, but the main inspiration is materials, and I researched a lot of tribes, especially in Papua New Guinea, who use materials in such an amazing way. I tried to use the word vernacular to describe it, but they just use materials in their immediate environment, which is completely different to what we do in our culture with materials. We just seem to make new materials to suit what we need to do, and it just contributes to this throwaway culture we have, which is so unsustainable and just bad for the environment. So my practice has always included like upcycling materials and manipulating materials which aren't new. Most of the project was about hand crafting everything. I didn't even know how to sew or dye anything before I started. Just kind of went head first into it, and it's all hand sewn. It's made out of material scraps, anything I could get my hands on, like clothes.
I was going to ask what materials did you use for this?
We went to a curtain store and we got loads of like scrap curtains. So a lot of it is curtains. There's a whole king size quilt in that from the charity shops. Clothes, old clothes, my grandma's clothes, like beads, like random beads, anything I could get my hands on really. Yeah, and it created these really rough and ready, wacky sculptures. I really didn't intend for it to look like this, but it just turned out the way it turned out.
And what kind of, by using these materials, it's really clear that you've used lots of different techniques and manipulated the fabric in different ways. So what kind of processes have you used on this?
So most of it is plaited. I just sit in my garden when it was hot and plait everything and then sew the plaits all together to create this kind of like garment. I use like this kind of like nets, you know how you put like cubes together and things like that. To draw it out, I'd made it like a net of the whole thing. But there's a lot of it that's dyed. I was trying with bleach, and there's a lot of beading in it because my mum makes jewellery, so she was like, you've got to put some beads on it to finish it off. So yeah, it's a bit of all sorts really, anything I could do at home. No machines used, all hand
sewn.
Yeah.
And I mean, this might be a question that I'll bring up again a bit later, but obviously with your final major projects and for everyone on the foundation course, you it was completed at home because during the pandemic. So were you kind of restricted in any way with having to did you have to change the way you were making work by not having the facilities at the university, or were you able to kind of do all of this from home anyway?
I was really lucky. I have got a space at home that I can do my work in, but I would have, it was more the people. A lot of like people in the studios would inspire me, and being on my own was very like hard to come up with. I couldn't bounce off anyone. But luckily I do have my own space at home and everything. I didn't use any machinery, I didn't need to go to the workshops. So I was lucky in that sense, but it would have been nice to have been in the studios, to have been around everyone. But like I say, we've got to adapt at the end of the day.
I imagine you've probably got a room absolutely stuffed with lots of...
Yes, my mum wasn't happy about putting things up on the walls, but you know.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hannah. Terry, would you mind introducing yourself and the work that you've made?
All right, yeah, so I'm on the fashion and textiles pathway, but I'm more fashion than textiles. And so this project was, the final project I was looking at this concept of queer island, because just before we kind of were doing final project, I was doing this project on like aliens, and I'm looking at things about how people can feel alien in identity, and I was kind of wanting to move that forward like in a more personal way, in like a way that's more specific. So it was kind of this project about bringing together like two parts of like two different cultures that are often, that don't necessarily like gel together or come together in ways, and like, especially visually. And that's really what I was trying to communicate, and what I was trying to do was sort of look at rather than necessarily like just bringing things together, also just like stripping like cultures down and what makes culture and what brings people together, and then being like, well, like this is like the core of society and things. So this was like a screenshot from a film I made for my final outcome, which was basically like I kind of like went on like a massive tangent in the middle of like, especially as lockdown came around, and I was kind of looking like specifically at dance and the importance of dance in cultures like around the world as well, not necessarily just in queer culture or in Irish culture, and looking specifically like Irish dancing as well. This was mainly about, I was like focusing on legs, and so this kind of had these like big huge like lump things on like where muscles are on the legs, and then these, so when it's static it's just this like big massive like strips of old fabric and stuff, but when it moves it creates this like big kind of surreal monster thingy. And yeah, it was really kind of about just like stripping everything down and like merging cultures together in that kind of way.
And in the film, when you're dancing, these kind of tassels have a real sculptural kind of feel to them, and obviously a lot of movement as well. And I'm really kind of fascinated by this outfit, which again kind of has a very sculptural element to it. So is that kind of part of the work, and what is that important?
Yeah, I think because especially as when like we had to move out the studios and things, and you're at home, it was kind of like well, like what do you do now? Because I think during Foundation, like you spend a lot of time like coming up with like all these ideas and things, but you're not necessarily always like visualizing them or really creating them, because everything just moves so fast. But the final project was a chance to kind of, or you, at least we're expected to like kind of really just go well and do what you want. But then as we were like working at home, it was more restrictive in a way. So it's like I wanted to do like really big, huge dresses and things, but and do a lot of that to do with like print and surface design and things, but I had like no fabric, I had nothing to print on fabric with. So I was like, so I'd been doing like all these prints and weird things with paper, and then I was like, well, you could just use even just like paper to make like huge like sculptural gowns and garments and things that like kind of in a way merge everything that I was doing at the time together. So I put my mum on like this box and a stall, so she'd be like huge, and then like kind of just draped all these like huge layers of paper and things around there.
I love how you got your mum involved.
Yeah. She was quite excited, and not gonna lie, yeah.
And sometimes being in a sort of restrictive or environment where you're kind of not able to have space or resources, sometimes that inspires kind of a shift in creativity. So
yeah, definitely.
Like and this is the final image.
Yeah, this was I did this was like a tiny bit just before I was doing my making my final outcome, because I was kind of like looking at like, well, this is what like queer culture looks like, this is what Irish culture looks like, how can I bring these things together in like a kind of mixed match like way that kind of was something new in a way. So like I'm not sure you can really see on the thing, but so I used to be an Irish dancer when I was a kid, so I kind of attached all these like medals that I won and stuff onto like old tights and things, and then made these like weird kind of prints and things out of it with like these like weird face paint and weird shoes and things, in a way that kind of brought like these like traditional elements in like a modern and kind of fun weird way, and put it all together that way.
And it looks like, similarly to Matty and Hannah, you've been able to experiment with I mean, is making films a new practice for you? Yeah,
completely. Like, because I think if we weren't in lockdown and everything, then I wouldn't have made a film. But it was like, because no one was going to see this in real life, so it's like we have to find another way to communicate like what you're really trying to say and how things move and all that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then so like making a film was like, it was really hard, because like I'm not some internet whiz, so it was like you kind of have to like figure out yourself. But it was also like, while it was quite stressful, it was also like quite fun to just have fun with it and just do some really weird stuff. So yeah.
And can you do Irish dancing in those heels?
No, but I can try, but probably not very well. So
no, I could for sure. But yeah, I'll stop sharing now. We can just open up to some more general questions. But that was definitely one of the favourite things about my foundation year, is that there is it's just an opportunity to try out loads of things without, there really being, you've got the freedom to do that and explore what areas and what practices interest you. So the foundation is a year-long full-time course. That's obviously kind of very different to perhaps studying art at college. How did you find that as a year? Was it quite intensive? What did you like about the structure?
I loved it being full-time, because it was a nice transition from A-level, and then we're going to go on to degree, which is a bit more fluid. Yeah. But the structure, even though it was structured, we could come in later if we wanted, we could stay in the studios till 8, we could come in earlier, go home earlier. It was quite a nice atmosphere to be in. We had a few lectures, not many, but we could come and go as we pleased. We could work as hard as we wanted. It wasn't very stressful. It was just a lovely environment to be in.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's kind of, it's a weird year in a way, because it's like, I think it's like, rather than say with the BA, it's like everyone kind of has their own like aims out of it, because it's just a year. Everyone's kind of got their own idea of what they want to get out of it, and it's like, even though everyone's got like the same kind of briefs and projects and things, it's really just like, it's what you want to do, and you tailor it to what you want to do and what you want to get out of it. And I think a lot of it is just like, because obviously the structure to it, and like what Hannah said, like you can come in like when you want and what you want to do. It's kind of like what you put into it is what you're going to get out of it in a way. So it's like, if you want to put loads of work in, then that's fine. If you don't, then that's also fine. So it's kind of, it's like more of an individual way of working. It's more like down to you as a person to like find out what you want to do and who you are and all that stuff.
Yeah, so yeah, I agree with you completely there, Terry. That because I had to pay for it, I got like the advanced learner loan from the government. Relatively easy, by the way, like too easy, which is interesting. But with that, like I had like a huge responsibility. Like I put a huge responsibility on myself to like literally come in like on the dot at 10, and I went to like every lecture. Like, but as you say, like you didn't have to go to like all these like sort of you didn't have to go into the studio at all if you really didn't want to. If you preferred like working at home, then like good on you. But that's not what the foundation experience. That's not the reason I chose the foundation experience for. I really wanted to like be in that open studio environment and just like and use like all the facilities. So I mean, if I went to like, I mean, I weighed up the price options for different like for example printing course. Like it would cost hundreds of pounds, and that's not even considering the materials as well, like on top of it. And just everything was just so cheap. Like like as a like illustrator graphic designer, printing costs was just like, and was amazing. We had like full like access to like the store as well. So just we got sheets of A2 paper for free, which like you can't get that at a BA level as far as I'm aware. And I can't just nip to the corner shop and get like an A2 piece of paper right now to do some work. So it's just like all the facilities and the materials are just there for you. So it just gave me more incentive to go in and just be there constantly. Like I was always in the studio, like, or I was never too far away from it. It was great.
And the things like Adobe programs as well, access to those is kind of obviously.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, it's weird BTech, isn't it? Because it's not university, but it's not college. But I'm at a university studying a college degree, which is perfect because I've got every single facility that a BA student has, but 1 year to do it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I squeezed 3 years of university into 1 year.
And so thinking about the studio, how important, I mean, like you've all kind of nodded to this anyway, but how important was the studio environment for you, and in terms of kind of being around your tutors, but also your course mates? Did you thrive in that environment?
It was so beautiful being in those studios. It was just such an amazing experience, and being round, like I said before, being round the artists who are producing work non-stop, seeing all the different displays all the time, everything's constantly changing. It's endlessly inspiring. I think I was only ever encouraged to do the weirdest things. Like, no one ever put me down, no one ever looked at me weirdly at what I was doing. Everyone just wanted to inspire each other and like encourage everyone in what they were doing. It was just such a beautiful place to be in. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, I think it's like, I remember like at first being like kind of almost like overwhelmed by it, because it's like, because you come from like, you know, from college or sixth form or whatever, and it's like, you know, like the education system at the moment is not something that necessarily like prioritizes like creative subjects and all students, and then suddenly you're like thrown into this environment where like everybody like appreciates each other and has like everyone like kind of like-minded, everyone like knows the same kind of things, has the same kind of like references, and it's like suddenly it's like you kind of feel like there's more kind of like substance and like worth to like what you do in a way, and like what you're interested in. So you're no longer like, you know, because like at school level people are always like, oh, what can you do with an art degree or whatever, but it's like here it was like there's actually value to that, and it was really, I think it's nice to be kind of like understood in that kind of way. And then even like same with like what Hannah said, it's like I think I didn't really realise even till like afterwards, like when we had to move out the studios, it's like just being around those types of people all the time, and then like having to come home and you're like just suddenly on your own on this table. It was just like really weird, and I think afterwards it kind of really made me appreciate that a lot more, because you do like even just like subconsciously like you're inspired by everyone that's around you, and like because there's so much that's always going on, like not even just the foundation studios but like all across the whole uni, there's so much going on and there's so much to draw from. So yeah, it's like a really valuable part of the year, I think.
Yes, certainly. Like, just to reiterate the open studio environment, like, I didn't strictly stay within my graphics illustration like corner.
Yeah, that's true.
I just walked. I walked everywhere, like certainly on the foundation floor, but I just wander upstairs to like architecture, like masters and stuff like that, and just see what they're doing. And like, as like someone who has like zero art background whatsoever, I just completely, that's why I walked around everywhere. I was just asking questions, like basically just whatever I liked, I just went over and talked to them, and I always get like the best response from them because they were just so pleased that someone liked the work or was paying them compliments. So like, it was just like such an open sort of feeling, like just walking about and chatting to people. It was lush.
Cool. Do you feel, I know a year goes very quickly, but if you could look back over the year, were there any kind of pivotal moments for you when you felt like your work was kind of shifting in a new direction? And at what point do you choose your pathway? And maybe was that the kind of, a decisive moment for you?
We did loads of like tasters in all the different areas. They were brief, but they were very informative of what we were going to go into. I went into the foundation course like decided I was going to do fashion. Definitely I'm going to do a fashion degree. And I turned up to the 3D design taster session. It just completely changed my mind. It was so weird and fun. I was like, I've got to do this. So it completely changed my mind on what I wanted to do, really. And it opened my eyes to what options I had as well. So I'm doing a completely different degree than I thought I was going into it.
That's unreal. Yeah. That like I don't particularly remember speaking to many people who like changed their sort of pathway.
Yeah.
With because I certainly went in. I mean, I suppose I did a bit. I went in thinking, I want to be a graphic designer, but then just as the course progressed, I just realised that I'm actually really good at illustration, like instead, and I thought the only career path was viable, like as a creative, was in graphic design. But being an illustrator is just a lot more, or just as much as in demand, and well, for me, a lot more fun than graphic designers. So I thought like the pathway section at the start was it was actually like quite daunting experience. I didn't particularly enjoy it that much, as well as like other people were. I think also because it is such an awkward stage. Like people are like brand new to the city or to the uni, and they were very close-minded, or just like didn't have the opportunity to express who they were up until potentially term 2, where everyone like got their spot in the studio and just started making their own work from there. So I'd say term 1 was a tough adjustment period, but term 2 is where I started to really get into the flow of things.
Yeah, Terry, do you have anything to add?
I don't. Yeah, I'm kind of the same as Matty. Like I went into it, and I was like, I know I want to do fashion, like, and you kind of knew, like specifically like where I wanted to apply afterwards, and like what I kind of wanted to get out of it. But even so, a lot changed. Like especially once after like that kind of 6 weeks of just random things that we were doing, we went into pathways. It was like slowly, it kind of like changes the way you think about and how you approach like just creativity and things in general. Like it really changed the way I thought about fashion and design, and just really about, it just changed the way you think about things. And it also like, because I was like, I want to do fashion design, I want to do this, it also kind of opened up like, well, it's not always like, it's like there's actually so much more option. There's like a lot of breadth between like even in just fashion and like even or like just in textiles, or even in just fashion design. It's like there's so many different pathways and so many different options and so many different things you can specialize in. It's not like you're just a fashion designer. It's like there's so many like little like niche areas, and it was a really just a good way to like just try everything, and then like kind of find like your practice and like where you're comfortable and like what you enjoy doing in that kind of way.
Yeah, I think that first initial period is really important if you had a very prescriptive way of working. So, you know, from me coming out of school, I would paint portraits in a very, what I thought, traditional and right way. And then all of a sudden I'm painting a fish with a fish.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Blowing my mind, because that's not the right way to do things. But you know, yeah, so it's kind of good to feel uncomfortable and be thrown about a bit before you're back on your pathway. Oh, I forgot about the fish. So how much did you use the kind of the wood workshop and any of the workshops available to you?
I mean, I used it to like there was no end to it. I certainly I was a big fan of like the printing workshop. I was like getting quite chatty and friendly with the engineers down there as well.
Technicians, now you learn a lot from them.
Yeah, and they were happy to just talk about their profession like to us, and they gave me so much like advice on what to do. And I think bookbinding was like a huge one for the graphics like illustration pathway. And I didn't realize how much like skill there is in bookbinding, whatever. And well, fortunately, like I knew like one of the persons that worked in there, Lisa, and she was just like always like really helpful and like friendly to everyone. Just they've got so much time for you, and yeah, it was great. Like I used them all the time. It was class.
I think that's one of the best bits of advice actually, is getting to know all the technicians that work in the workshop, because their advice is
yeah, definitely. So like that's why I always like show my face in there, even if I wasn't working on like something that day. I'd just like pop in to say I've got this idea, what do you think? And they'd just be straight away say exactly what I need to do or what I need to prepare for it. So I think especially when with printing, when it came to like producing negatives, they tell us like exactly what to do in Photoshop beforehand in order for the print to come out perfect, sort of thing. So yeah, technicians were brilliant, and they were so helpful. They were class.
I was hesitant to go down to the workshops first. I was a bit nervous. But Dave was like, go, you'll like, if you want to make this happen, go and do it. I went down to the wood workshop, and I'd done woodwork for A-level. So I was pretty like, oh, I know the machines, but turns out I did not. There's so much more to learn, and there's so many like machines to like get to grips with. The technicians were so helpful and so lovely. They could tell like I was obviously very like, oh, what do I do? And they were just so lovely, so helpful. Like now they always say hi to me when I walk past down there. Even me as a 3D design student, I went to the bookbinding workshops. It's so weird. You can use all of them. It doesn't even matter what pathway you're in.
Yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
Great.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I kind of regret, because I didn't use a lot of the workshops. But I used to use the heat press machine all the time, and I used to use letterpress every now and then. But then, yeah, I don't know why. I think one of the things is like, because once those like sign-up sheets go up for inductions, they're like gone in like 10 seconds. So it's really hard to even like get an induction. So like it was just, yeah, I think I did silk screening sometimes, but yeah, but like even like the few times I did use it, it was so, it's just like this, it just opens your eyes to like just like the amount of opportunity there is. And like say even if you were doing, you know, woodwork or something, that doesn't mean that's just like a 3D student or, you know, a sculpture student or something. It's like that could easily be just those like transferred into, you know, making a dress or anything. So it's like it was never like limiting to like, so it's like to what you think it would be in that kind of way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. So I guess just kind of rounding up, I think I know the answer to this, but would you advise other people to do a foundation course? And I guess what's next steps for you guys?
Definitely. Like, I would recommend it to everyone that wants to do an art or design degree. Like, it's one of the best things I did. One of the best academic years I ever had as well.
I'd recommend it to people who even just like slightly considering it, because I did not, when I was in sixth form, I did not know that foundation year at university was an option.
Yeah.
Like, so, and it's one of the bigger regrets of my life that I didn't do it earlier. But at the same time, I don't regret doing it now, because I wouldn't have had all the experiences or the life changes to get to this point, sort of thing. So as a mature student, I'm in a much better position I am now than when I was 18, 19. And I do not look back like and regret anything about this foundation year. I thought it was absolutely quality decision. And as long as if you're slightly interested in it, you should definitely just go for it, because it's free.
I would love to do a foundation year now.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be 2 years. Like, I'd happily do a year of foundation.
Yeah, very quick. Terry,
I think it's kind of hard to explain. Like, I think you really just have to do it to like fully understand. But it really does just change like the way, because especially like coming from like A levels or whatever, it is. I think the difference between that and like a BA, it's quite different. Like, not just in environment, but just the way you work and the way you think about things. It's like it really just changes to your whole approach to art and design, and it just kind of, I mean, and because I think the thing about it is, it's not like foundation. It's kind of more like a stepping stone. It's not this like big final destination. So it's like you can do like the whole thing wrong and it can still be good. It's just really about finding like who you are, like what your practice is, and and I think people start like knowing like, or at least they think like what they want to do and who they are and stuff, but by the end it's completely different. And I think you do like change, because obviously it's just a year, but it is also like it's really intense. Like, it's a lot of work, but like by the end of it, it's really worth it. And it's you're like, I personally have learned quite a lot. I think most people have as well, so I would definitely recommend it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you very much, guys. I really appreciate your input, and it's been really brilliant to hear about your year and your projects. So I hope you keep in touch with the university, pop in, say hello, and that's all for now. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Zoe.
Thanks.